Welcome to Heritage Day in Moira, New York in Franklin County. Our little corner has decided to get in Calvin's car and take a little ride today for a very good reason. It's like old home week for me, coming back here because I graduated from the old Moira High School in June of 1955. And some friends of mine, Linda Denoyers and some of the other folks, invited me to come down to be the Grand Marshal in their second annual Heritage Day Parade. So Calvin and I are proud to be here on this 28th day of July, 2001. I walked into the park next to the church my dad was a minister at many, many years ago. And boy, the memories flooded into my mind. I told Calvin, this is one of the few churches I've ever seen where you walk in the door and you have to go upstairs to go into the sanctuary. I remember staircases on either side and what they called coffin corners, places where there would be an inset in the wall where coffins for funerals could be placed on the way upstairs. So this is a very historic community, and we're very proud to say that a lot of North Country communities are taking advantage of their history by having these kinds of heritage days, centennials, bicentennials, sesquicentennials, and I'm also proud to say that our little corner cameras with Calvin Castine and myself have been able to cover most of them. I walk into the park and I run into somebody I know. What's your name?
Polly Sturgeon. I've been married 47 years. His father married us.
My dad was Reverend Russell Lee Little, who was a minister here for several years, from the early 50s until the later 50s. I came here midway through my freshman year in high school and graduated from high school here in 1955. When did you graduate?
Oh, I don't want to talk about that. This here is Danny Klebs, too, a local. He's very active with the senior citizens and all these type of programs.
Danny, Gordy Little, I'm glad to meet you. Calvin Castine, right over here.
Mr. Castine, it's nice to meet both you gentlemen.
Have you lived here a long time, Danny?
I have lived here not long enough, but I've lived here since 1976, except for a brief hiatus, 1997 through the year 2000. But I'm delighted to be back. I've become very, very attached and very active. Well, I don't do enough, but
you know, I'm so pleased to learn that they're doing so much to preserve their history and to dig up the history, because for many years these small towns kind of forgot their history. And last year, with their Heritage Day and their very successful parade, kind of opened a few eyes, didn't it?
I think it did. This is a wonderful opportunity to just share with people the heart and the soul of small town America, and I don't think you'll find any greater demonstration of kindness and just good people than you will in the Moira and the Brushton and I have to say Brushton because
yes.
I get my mail delivered there.
Yes.
So.
And all these active displays of sewing, ice cream making, our kids never experienced this.
That's exactly right.
There are a lot of things going on today. I just kind of filled my eyes to drink it all in when we parked our car, and it's kind of neat to get all these people together, and I saw a few of the floats being organized up toward the other end of town. So it's kind of neat. Actually, we should tell our viewers who aren't familiar with this part of Franklin County that Moira and Brushton are both in the town of Moira,
That's right.
Dan?
That's exactly right. It's the village of Brushton within the town of Moira.
Boy, I'll tell you, it's been a long time. Now, I haven't actually been back to stand where we're standing now since I left here in the fall of 1955 to go to college. While I was in college for 6 years, my dad moved away from this area, and I just never came back. I stayed in touch with a few people. Theron Rockhill went to college with me, and I know his mom still lives right here on the edge of town, and I hope to see her somewhere today.
I doubt it, but, I know she'd love to have you visit.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll stop in. Now, what do you do for a living?
Actually, no.
Lots of things.
Actually, I work with North Country Home Services. That is my main occupation. I also work as a consultant with the Alzheimer's Disease Assistance Center.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, I'm learning an awful lot about something that needs to have a lot learned about it. And I really do. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I love certain aspects of the big city, but there's certainly a hook in my heart now for the North Country, and I'm just delighted. My wife was a Rock Hill, or
no
is a Rock
kidding.
Hill.
Woman on Teresa Rockhill's daughter.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
And he plays at the different events,
Oh.
and yeah, his pictures in the paper. He's
Pictures in the
he's
post
known
office.
by everybody, you know. You're going to see a lot of local people here today that you may not remember. You probably should put a name tag on them, you know.
It's very difficult for me, you know, when you get to my age.
Well, when you have your name tag on, I think you're going to see
Yeah.
Pete Warner's wife. I'll be here, and her family.
That's great.
It is great.
Get
It's a
to
great
reminisce
turnout.
just a little bit. So actually, what are you doing as part of this Heritage Day?
Today, I am, as we speak, I'm speaking with you. I mean, that's somewhat redundant. I'm the official master of ceremonies, which means that I have a loud voice. I'll be announcing the parade.
Oh, that's good.
I'll be coordinating some of the events, helping people find out where they need to be, and then a couple of my music peers will be coming down later on this afternoon, and we'll be
Put on a
playing a
little
little
show,
bit. Yeah,
right?
well, a very little show.
Yes.
yeah.
Is there a judge's stand down here, or where are you going to be? Where's the parade going to go by?
The parade will come right by the corners, the famous crossroads corners of Route 11 and 95. And I'll be announcing, I believe, Mr. George Guyette, who is just one of the nicest guys. He will be helping me. And then I'll be announcing the events and the winners right from the stage set up here right in the park.
Oh, that sounds like an awful lot of fun. Last year's parade was about 45 minutes, I understand, and this year's is scheduled to be even better.
I believe that this year we are in competition with the Tournament of Roses parade for the
That's pretty neat.
He's living on it.
Behind us is the old Moira Town Hall, and this historical association has been working very hard to get it restored, collect some money to really make that a focal point of collecting the history from this town, and that's kind of neat too, huh?
There is a nice display in there too. Don't miss it just because they're working on the building.
Oh no, you know that I'm going to sneak in every place I can possibly get inside.
Yeah, woodworking type thing, you know, old tools.
That's neat. I should tell the people that when I graduated from Moira High School in 1955, that's before the days of centralization. And our old school, which is now gone, long gone, was down the road a piece behind me. And if I had told my wife soon enough, I would have been able to find in my shed somewhere an old painting that a woman by the name of Maud Stiles did of our old high school way back when.
I get over here.
Kay said, "Why didn't you tell me yesterday or the day before?" And we could possibly have found it, but we didn't find it by then. But that's all right.
You think I hugged you? This is Carol Stiles right here. She taught most all us local
Carol
people.
Stiles, how are you, Gordy Little? I'm pleased to see you.
Are you Gordy?
Yes, I
I
am.
haven't seen you ages, Gordy.
And how many years did you teach here?
Oh, I taught 36 altogether.
Exactly the number of years I was in the radio business in Plattsburgh. 36
and you're still
years.
in Plattsburgh, aren't you?
Still in Plattsburgh, still having
taking
fun.
pictures? She's not
Yes, of
going
course he
again.
is. Now listen, I have to ask you an important question. Was Maud Stiles related to you?
Maud Stiles was on the, wait just a minute, I got to think about Maud. Yeah, she was Lyndon's uncle.
Because she did a painting of the old high school, which I have at home, and if I'd been smart enough to tell my wife, who knows where everything is in our house, I would have brought it here today just to show people.
She did quite a lot of painting.
Way
they
back
lived
when.
down the hill. Well, it's when I was first teaching here. Lord, that was a long time ago.
It's hard for me to remember the old building. That's why I was glad to go over by the stage and see somebody had done a wooden cutout of what the old school looked like.
I'm going to go over and get Linda Denoyers over here.
Oh, is she there?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
Oh, I
So-
got to go.
So you taught, what, 5th and 6th grade? I'm trying to remember.
I started teaching, no, I taught kindergarten. I
kindergarten?
started first grade.
Yeah.
I know you're interviewing me, and I don't want to
You can hide behind
be.
me.
Okay.
You could, and about 4 other people could easily hide behind this body. It's so great to meet you and to see you again after all these
Yeah,
years.
it's been a long time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, are the ladies in the church?
We're going to stop for just a moment to make sure our tape is recording okay, and then we'll continue for Heritage Day in Moira, New York.
Thank you.
We're recording this on the 28th day of July 2001, just before the Heritage Day parade begins in Moira. I have with me Wayne Brockway, whose house is built on the site of the old high school. Wayne, how you doing?
Very good, very good.
Glad to have you here today. When was your house built?
1974.
It was.
Yeah.
I have no idea when they tore the old high school down because I left here in 1955 and didn't come back too much after that.
I think they probably tore it down somewhere in the early 60s.
They did.
Yeah. Albert LaBarge bought it from Northern Reel. It used to be Northern Reel at that time. He bought it and tore that down and had it for a parking lot for his reel factory.
Well, they did.
Yeah. And then Bob Baker ended up buying it from Frenchie LaBarge, and then I got it from Bob Baker.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that school had a lot of history. As I recall, remembering that school was built, I think, before the Civil War.
Oh,
It was an
long time
old
ago, yeah.
2 or 3 story wooden building
Yeah,
that
2-story.
just
Well,
seemed to be a
3.
fixture in
Yeah,
town
yeah,
here.
Yeah.
And I came here midway through my freshman year in high school from Messina and went to school there all 4 years and graduated in 1955, the old Moira Tigers.
Right. Right.
So your house was built there in 74?
Yeah.
We'll have to take a little run down there to see what it looks like now.
Oh yeah, it's where I've lived since '74. I've been married in '73, and somewhere in that area.
Obviously, you're in the fire department here.
Oh yeah, I've been in it for 40-some years.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Wow, there's nothing like the small town fire departments and the camaraderie that the guys and gals have. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't have the time to put in I used to have, but I will have a few more years when I retire.
Have you always lived? You've always lived here, right?
I came here in the early '50s from Westville.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. My mother and father split up, and then I came with my mother in the early '50s and started school here in 2nd grade, I believe.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well, I was in high school back in those days, but I remember you, and I remember lots of people telling me that's where your house went.
Yeah,
In the
that's it.
70s. I didn't come here that often, but I did keep track of this town.
Yeah.
Because my dad was here probably till, I don't know, somewhere in the late 50s, I guess, because I went to college and kind of lost track of people, you know. This Heritage Day is getting to be a real neat thing, isn't it,
Well,
Wayne?
I'll tell you, the women have really worked hard on this. Linda Denoyers and her group have really put a lot of time into it. They're doing one hell of a job. You're getting everybody out that would never come to an ordinary field day. The older people are coming out and really supporting it. A lot of different things going on, and it takes a lot of people to put one of these on. The fire departments just don't have the help anymore to do that.
It's great when the whole community gets together.
Yeah.
I was just as you were talking here, I said I hadn't been here in a long time, but my mind just flashed back to ice cream socials here. In the 1950s, they used to have ice cream socials right on this lawn. And yes, I did like to eat just as much back then as I do now.
Well, my mother ran the nursing home right there for years.
Did she really?
Yeah. Brockway's Convalescent Home.
Brockway's Convalescent
Yeah,
Home,
probably,
right next door on
yeah,
this side.
yeah.
Oh, look
She
at this. There's pies.
20 years.
There's pies coming out of the church, Wayne.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm in big trouble. I hope you don't walk too close to me. I'm liable to whip a fork out of my pocket. There are a lot of activities planned for today besides the parade. A lot of historical things, a lot of people selling homemade items. Oh, look at the great stuff behind me. It's just a good community. As I was saying, where the horses on that barn over there was a blacksmith shop.
Not there. It was
Not
down
there?
farther.
Was it down
It was
farther?
down farther. It was down where the ARC home is. That big house right on the corner, there was a blacksmith shop in back of that.
And the man who was the Justice of the Peace, Mr.
Hyde.
I'm trying to remember his
Arthur
first name.
Hyde.
Arthur Hyde
Yeah.
was the Justice of the Peace.
Yeah.
And I was telling Calvin earlier how I used to go in and watch him. He was a master.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were still making horseshoes and
Oh, yeah.
making lots of things out of iron back in those days.
Yeah.
things have changed, but a lot of things are the same here. You know, it's nice to come to town. It's tough to see the old hotel is not in very good shape anymore.
No.
But that was a hubbub of activity way back when.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't there a barber shop in the
Right in the center, right
in the center?
Right, you go downstairs, right in the Y, there was a barber shop there.
I'm trying to remember whether it was 50 cents or $1 for a haircut. Now I don't have enough hair to worry about anymore.
The old clock, the Wilbur Austin clock, now that was over there in the corner of the school lot.
I thought there was
And
something
then,
different about that, and it didn't run for years and years.
Well, I guess it didn't run for years, but then we moved it over here. Everett Flint put a whole new face on it and everything, and both sides, and we got it running. It's been running probably here since, I'm going to say in the early 70s maybe. They moved it over.
And as I remember reading in the papers, during the hostage crisis, didn't some of the gals go into church and ring this church bell every day for how many ever days their hostages were?
Yeah,
I
they
seem
used
to
to have
remember that.
another church here. There was a church where the fire station is too.
Oh, that's
At one
right.
time, there was another church there. Well, that one never ran when I was,
It didn't.
it was put it all run down when we were kids.
Well, as I recall, this church is also dates way back into the 1800s. I don't know how far back, but a long ways.
Somewhere there's a plaque on the front of it here somewhere.
And I remember somebody telling me that this church organ was brought here by ox cart from somewhere maybe like Canton or Potsdam many years before.
Kermit Wells, he could probably tell, Kermit Saxton, could probably tell you about that deal.
Yeah.
He's an old historian here.
We love historical stuff. We like to talk to people about history and see how these towns were put together and who's still alive that was around here.
He's the one that's got the oxen, so if you see
he
the
does?
oxen, yeah, they're going to be here with oxen. They're here somewhere. I don't know where they are. But
Well, we'll find them, and I suppose pretty soon I better go and find out where I'm supposed to be in the parade. Wayne, it's great to talk to you. Maybe we'll talk to you again before we leave today.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good to have you back home.
Oh, great to be here. That's Wayne Brockway, whose house is at the site of the old Moira High School. We're here for Heritage Day 2001.
Mom, this is Gordy Little.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I listen to. I read your article all the time.
Do you really? Now, I forgot your name. Is it
Elsie.
Elsie? And your last name is?
As Lion.
Elsie Lyon. And my mom and dad knew you very, very well back in the 1950s.
They came to see me all the time.
Well, my father probably came to get a good home-cooked meal.
Maybe that's true.
Because I always said that about my dad. He was one of those people that loved to go and visit folks right around supper time.
Yeah, I know.
He would never turn down a good piece of pie and a cup of coffee. I know that.
No.
He taught me everything I know.
Even to go to dances
Oh, sure. Now, where do you live right now?
down on 95.
Not too far out of town?
No.
Where
About
they've
3
lived
miles.
for years. I was born there in that house,
Were you really? Oh, my goodness.
and I live right next door to her, and I stay nights with her because she can't be left alone.
I'm so glad that the weather turned out good today, Elsie. What do you think about that?
That's good. This is my granddaughter. Where'd she go?
Hi, how are you doing? This is kind of fun to have this historical day here, huh?
Isn't it? Yes, it is.
Did you get to go to the parade last year, Elsie?
Mm-hmm.
Did you? I heard it was pretty nice, too.
Oh yes, yeah. Parade was nice. I know.
Well, it's going to be neat to be in the parade here today and smile a lot at people that I haven't seen for a long, long time. What's hard for me to believe is that it was 46 years ago when I left here.
Time gets away, don't it?
Time flies. I've said that. Time flies when you're having fun. Well, I'm so glad you came here to see us today, and it's so great to hear you again.
She's responsible.
She's responsible for getting you here. She looks like she takes you where you need to go, right?
She does.
Else,
Do you remember my sister Joan?
Of
That's her
course.
oldest daughter.
oh my goodness, that's incredible.
My sister died 3 years ago, or
Oh my,
at 53. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
that's her oldest daughter, and she comes every week from Saranac on her days off. Come take care of them.
She lives in Saranac Lake or Saranac?
Saranac Lake.
In Saranac Lake. My wife was born in Saranac Lake. Went to the old Petrova High School up there many years ago. It's great. Well, I'm so glad the sun is shining. It's so much fun to meet all these wonderful people.
Yeah, I
Are you
am
going to
too.
stay for the parade?
Oh, yeah. yeah, sure.
Yo, you're not going to miss that, right?
No. Well, I don't know what I'll see about it, but
Well, that's all right.
You tell me.
People
You
will
tell
tell
me.
you what's going on. Elsie, thanks so much for coming by today. It's great to see you again.
yeah, me too.
It's fun. It's fun for Heritage Day 2001.
By golly, it looks like a 38 or a 39 Chevy. We're giving you a little preview here of the parade. We're standing in front of the crossroad, and we are located 12 miles west of Malone and 27 miles this side of Potsdam. The most famous four corners in the Tri-County area. A famous Crossroads restaurant located here. Is introducing the judges, Terry Trudeau, Reverend Waldron,
as is her wont, the esteemed Debbie Parent.
and Debbie Parent. And George Goyette is just here to observe, I guess. Keep Danny in line, probably. This is the man who's in charge of traffic right here. The official Brushton Moira traffic control man right here at the Four Corners. Must be a ball game going on at some time or another. Bob Rotero is here. Bob's at all the ball games in Franklin County.
We're a little worried about that last night. It's a good thing the parade didn't start on time. You'd have missed it.
You might think that the noon parade is starting a little early, but actually the 11 a.m. parade is getting here a little late. The second annual town of Moira, not to be confused with Moriah, but Moira in Franklin County. Heritage Day Parade.
We should. Don't Amy's sitting in it now. No, Danny can't see now. Now you guys got to move your thing out further, right?
Give this man a ticket right here. 1B41.
Who's going to be the first one out there to say, citizens arrest! Citizens arrest! Ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.
From New York State Finest, our state trooper.
Broken headlight, bud.
We'll see the paper that says you got 72 hours to get that headlight fixed, buddy.
24. All right. There's a color guard, the Legion.
From the Brushton Moira American Legion, our color guard. Thanks, guys. Give a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, our parade marshal, Mr. Gordy Little.
From Hometown Cable.
1955, graduate of Brushton Moira Central. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's say Brushton Moira here was our parade coordinator emeritus, George Goyette. Caught that. Thank you, George.
Graduate of Moira.
He's a retired Pittsburgh journalist known for his small talk articles in the Press Republican. He was a popular figure for 36 years on WIR radio and is the creator of our little corner. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gordy Little.
The creator of our little corner. How about that?
Here they come, ladies and gentlemen. All the kids on bikes and the bigger kids walking. Oh, I think these are all the kids from Brushton First Christian Church. Thank you. There they are. All right, huh? They'll be singing. They do a great job when you hear these kids singing in the park. Hey, slow that thing down, buddy.
Yeah, you got good brakes in that thing. He stopped all of a sudden.
Take a look at these horseless carriages. We have 19 1901 horseless carriage.
A 1901. Is it an Oldsmobile? What is it? Doesn't say the model. Just a horseless
We're a
carriage.
little confused. Give us your names. Are you the Dunnings?
No, Mitchell.
You're John Mitchell. My goodness, it is you. Ladies and gentlemen, there he is. John Mitchell.
And a horseless carriage. 1901. 100 years old today. They bought it a year ago.
Here comes
July
another
28th.
horseless carriage. All right. That would be Raymond Dunning. Raymond Dunning Jr. Give him a big round of applause.
This horn works.
You'll have to excuse George. He had a rather gaseous breakfast this morning.
That's a real trunk in the back. And another horseless carriage. This is not a one horseless carriage town, that's for sure.
And one more horseless carriage. All right, we'll get the names, the driver and the rider in just a second. If you'll give us your name, we'll say driving the horseless carriage is? That is Raymond Dunning Jr. Okay, Ray Dunning Jr. Ah, you gotta love the 70s. Here they come, Bob and Norma Gary in their 1973 Holt Delta 88 convertible. Riding with the Garys are their grandchildren. Let's say hello to Haley, Ariel, and Trent, better known as Boo Boo.
All right. A little bit bigger than a horseless carriage. There's some old autos coming up though. Nice collection here. Very nice collection of antique automobiles coming right up.
Here's a familiar figure in space on the local heritage scene. It is 1917 Dodge Brothers. It is Otto and Lois Charles.
Dodge Brothers, probably Mr. Perry from Moore's helped build that one. If you caught our Lozier program, you heard all about Mr. Perry.
1937 Plymouth. This is being driven by Jay and Beth Child.
It's a Plymouth, I think he said. Looks
Here he comes. My pancake
nice.
buddy in his 1930 Model A, Ambrose Snyder.
1930 Model A. They're motoring right by here. They're not going slow once they get by here. They're going slow getting here, then they get here and they speed up. I guess they got a flag person up ahead. They got a flag person holding them up. So that's what the holdup is. That's a beauty right there. Look at that one. That is sparkling. Two-tone red wheels. That is beautiful.
Here it comes, the 1927 Model T, Mr. Cy Winter.
1927 Model T. Great looking. Great.
Support your Heritage Day. $1 button.
Support your Heritage Day. $1 button fee. Chris Hastings. Chris Hastings. Right there. Support your Heritage Day.
1928 Corvette.
All right, let's take a look at this beauty. A 1977 Corvette. And the driver's Don and Connie Hill.
The flags were optional. Look out, kids. Got a glove compartment full of candy.
All right, handing out candy to the judges. Yes, indeed. Way to drive them, folks. Way to go. And the 1939 Chevy Master 88, Mr. and Mrs. Donald Durant of the Durants of Bombay.
It's a beauty. I love that trunk.
Well, let's hear it for the 1954 F100. And the driver, none other than Russian Wire Zone, Wayne Gomez.
That's another nice one right here. Those white walls.
Tell him rev that engine. Riding with Miss Dumas is Mr. Johnny Dow.
And
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here they are, members of the Malone Tots Group. Let's give them a round of applause.
this, I assume, is not the grocery store. Take off pounds sensibly, I believe. And one sensible way to do it is
Extra special cute
march
today.
in the parade.
George Guyette said, if any of you ladies aren't married, please raise your hand.
Oh, everybody's hands up.
All right, George. Oh, and on the blank, Jamie and Jesse Brown. Thanks, guys. There they are, the Browns. On the back. Four-wheeler foot, ladies and gentlemen. It is Mr. Bruce Jackson and his partner reenacting the Civil War.
It's like a scene from Appomattox there.
I think Bruce has got a history. A little confused. He just said to me, what if I land? So if I Harley Davidson, just Edward and Sherry Scarafone. Ah, there you go. Moira Heritage Fire Department is represented with their big yellow truck driven by Mr. Pat Kern.
Looks like they had a lot of yellow paint.
You never see a parade like this, man. Is this not the biggest little parade in the entire world? Or at least north of Fishing Small. Fire Department. That's Mike Laramie driving that.
And the Moira ambulance.
No, I can't ride out in front of the ambulance.
Yeah, see, it says ambulance.
All right, now we have the Fire Volunteer Fire Rescue vehicles. There is Mr. Powers. Brian Powers driving that one. Brian, keep your eyes on the road and off the young ladies. And here's a brand new rescue vehicle purchased by the Wire Volunteer Fire Department, all right? Just purchased this week.
Brand new, brand spitting new. So new they don't even have it licensed yet.
No, not in service yet. I love it. The kids got their bands down.
And another vehicle from the Wire Fire Department. Let's just hope no one gets in trouble today. They're all here at the parade.
And there's more.
Two more from the Wire Fire Department. How about those tax dollars paying for all the fuel for these vehicles today? Easy on us there. All right.
Looks like they keep their old ambulances here. Either they got a lot of accidents here, they got a lot of ambulances, or they keep them once they get a new one.
There it is, behind the wheel of the big white Wire Volunteer Fire Rescue. It's Bones.
Here comes a low-slung vehicle.
Okay, take a look at this fly rod. That's Cody and Jesse Bylaw. All right.
With their flags hung backwards, though, the stars always go in the upper left-hand corner. For future years reference, always put the blue stars in the upper left-hand corner. Hang up the flag.
On to the antique tractor, Mr. Ben Cleveland.
It's John Deere, I believe. Everything but the decals.
Here they come, community spirit action. Combined, West Moira, St. Regis Falls, community band.
All right, community band, Buxton, Moira, and St. Regis. Called the Waverly Community Band.
On the back it says Waverly Community Band, so let's all wave to them and say, head on. Into the sunset, Lord Bad Joe.
.4-H Club.
Here they come, the Bangor Rangers, 4-H Club. This is their first year participating. The club consists of 19 members. The club consists of Alan Man, 4-H Project, okay? The cow's name is Bestie. Let's all say hi to Bestie. Don't forget to come and see them at their exhibit at the Franklin County Fair. The Bangor Rangers, their first time. Let's make them feel welcome.
All right, now and then, 4-H projects. From Bangor. North, south, east, and west. And they got the town inviting you to drink milk.
There's a little girl that stole about 9 first place. Oh, and look, the clown is bribing the judges. And of course, the astute eye of Denny Kerr said, well, at least they don't get a blooper scooper with that now.
All right, got some tumblers coming up here, some gymnasts coming right at us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got people from the Flip Factory. All right. There they are.
There we go. Let's get some tumbling goers here. Here we go.
All right.
Cartwheels.
Well, we figure if the state troop car can be in violation, we can leave the doors open. Let's give these kids a round of applause.
Grab the candy. Never mind the cartwheels. This girl gonna do a cartwheel or not? There. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Oh, is that Amanda?
There we go. On tarmac. Can't get much braver than that.
Well, let me see what your sign says over there. St. Regis Ball Stop. Hello, room. How are ya? All right, here they are from the Bruston Moira Senior Center.
Looks like Granny fell off the rocking chair.
Winners! Oh, there's their room next there. On the cleats, all right. Gold receiver up to center. There they are, the Bruston Moira. You want to bribe the judges, ladies, I'll tell you. Give it to the only senior citizen up here. Henry Kruger.
And School of Dance.
Here they are, Suzanne Wilbanks. Hello, Suzanne. Oh, I don't know anything about that. Nobody told me. Okay, let's see what we're going to do. We're going to have to hold up. You're going to do, I'm sure you're going to do something great.
Right here, there's a...
Okay, here comes Linda Denoyer. She's going to tell me what to do as the judges have been telling me where to go most of the parade. Don't go away, folks. When you see these kids in action, you're going to be glad you came all the way from the hinterlands. And don't forget, make the people from out of town, like the Emmermans, feel good. I had a twist of their arm to come down there today. Tom said, Moira, is that still a town? Sue-Ann, you want me to say anything special?
Here we go. They're going to dance.
Fort Covington, New York.
All the way from Fort Covington.
All right, I gotta rewind it. Sorry.
All right, let's all watch Sue-Ann rewind this. Can anybody do it better than Sue-Ann, huh?
Here we go.
Here we go.
Somebody get that clown out of the street.
Not in the mirror. There's a mirror. Okay, now smile.
From Fort Collins, New York, Suzanne, school dance.
On the hot tarmac. I'd be kicking my legs if I was sitting on that tarmac too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, 4 o'clock this afternoon, Terry Trudeau and George Guyette will be recreating that routine right in the park.
Maybe, or maybe not. Oh, we got some girls, oh, younger ones here too.
Newland, school dance, Fort Covington, New York.
Alright, and it's waiting patiently here has been farm tractor with some real livestock. Good crowd here at the Four Corners in Moira, right in front of the Crossroads restaurant.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a great look on the American Heritage. All right, what a great look.
Like that calf a little bit hungry here. Kind of gant. Farmers from our
All
area.
right, they're farmers from our area. All right, you can read their names on the back because I'm sure you can see a lot better than I can.
And many more.
Okay, Tops, New York, 1706, Brooklyn, New York.
Another Tops chapter here, taking off some pounds sensibly. Again, this is not the grocery store. This is taking off some pounds sensibly, marching in the parade.
Let's have a big round of applause for the volunteer firefighters from Bombay, New York.
From Bombay.
Rushton Tops Group meet the senior citizens in Rushton Monday evening at 5 o'clock at noon.
We've noticed our sound has been going in and out. We apologize if we missed the audio portion of your favorite part of this parade.
Professor Lowe and his old-time magic, a prestidigitator of the highest order.
When we're this close to the PA system, we can't always tell if we're hearing the sound through our earpiece or otherwise.
Today is the only day he's going to do it. At 2:30, he's going to dive into his own table and disappear.
Professor Marble. And from Bangor.
Again for the firefighters from Bangor, New York. All right, here is a float from the Rutland Station, right there.
Rutland.
Moira, New York.
Rutland Station.
And look who's behind the wheel, Herbie Hughes. There's the smart lady. She says, I'm not going to buy any Halloween candy. I'll just pick it all up on the route and put it in the baby carriage. Sure does. You never tell who told me. There he is, our good friend, Brian Barron, our county treasurer. Wait a minute. This looks like a conflict of interest. Wait a minute. That's the legislator driving that vehicle. Ray Susie.
That's even worse than
Our
that.
new DA. He just said, put this pussy pop in your mouth. Hey, Brian.
Dickinson. DVFD. Dickinson Volunteer Fire Department.
Dickinson Fire Department is well represented today.
Oh yeah, they're going to collide with one of the Moira vehicles here. You're getting a cross weaving of the parade here. They're making the circle. More politicians coming.
All right, here we got Moira, Democrats. All right, who we got on that orange donut? Brenda Sadler. This is your town, folks. You got it. All right, there they are. Town of Moira Democrats. Mr. Orange donut, Brenda Sadler. All right, here we have riding.
Looks like an old schoolhouse scene here.
It looks like an old heritage schoolhouse. Yep. I don't know, but that looks really, really neat. That's wonderful. Let's give them a round of applause, all right?
Not sure who put it in. I'm not sure they announced it here, but
Those desks actually came out of the back of the Moira School. 3 or 4 of them had short guy in, walked right into them.
Alright, here's Hope Community Center.
All right, here we have from the First Christian Church Hope Community Center up front, that was designed and constructed by a summer missionary and the church youth, and the biggest church youth of all driving, Mr. Arthur Stevenson. Hey, Hop and Thomas can't be open, but all the workers are on the float.
No, there's some there.
Okay, but not the good ones like you, Sarah.
First Christian Church. Looks like they're going tenting tonight.
Here it comes, what are you waiting for?
All right, from Brushton, a 41. 60 years old. Look at that vehicle. Look at that vehicle. 60 years old this year. Again, behind the wheel here, this Brushton fire truck. And more from Brushton.
Another one from the Brushton, excuse me, Officer Fire Department.
And we got a big team of workhorses coming. Big team. This is a nice team of horses coming right up here. This is the way it was before tractors. Those are beauties. The Gordon family, old time sugaring.
What do you have, Jim? You have some syrup?
We knew you weren't sweet enough, so we got some syrup for you.
I've known this man 22 years. That's the 5th word he said to me. All right, Jim's got some sugar, okay? Maple syrup.
Here they come. Oh, look at this, a human yolk here.
Oh, they're bringing it right over.
Syrup for the judges. Oh, Dan's going to get the sip here.
Jim, I want to tell you something. I've tasted maple syrup in my lifetime. Believe me, that is great, great maple syrup. Thank you so very much. It'll be on sale today, the Gordon Family Farm and their sugaring horses.
All right, very nice display indeed. Life is sweet.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, here they come.
Couple of oxen.
Daniel, 1-1-half-year-old shorthorn oxen. The only oxen in Franklin County. They're from the Saxton Homestead in Brushton.
Saxton.
Owner and driver, Kermit E. Saxton. He has been training oxen for over 40 years. Mr. Kermit E. Saxton. In the cart is none other than Owen Vaughn, Kermit Helper. There they are, Samson. Samson and Daniel, all right, and there we go. Who said something about not being a pooper scooper? There he is, Mr. Chad Niles, all right, and he's pulling the spelling bee participants. Looks like these kids actually can spell. All right, first young lady, let's have you spell egregious. Yeah, you know, like egregious building on television. Oh, that's Regis. I apologize. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, there's. You're going to try to go through the oxen droppings up there. Very carefully. Don't want to spin your tires after going through there. We got more horses coming. And this might be it. This looks like this is going to wrap up the parade. A very nice parade. Second annual Heritage Day Parade. I invite anybody in and around Franklin County to take in this parade next year. And we also want to remind our Franklin County viewers that Hometown Cable is viewer-supported television. We've got absolutely... They're from St. Lawrence County.
It's none other than the Helena Hooper. Let's give them a round of applause.
We have, at this point in time, we have absolutely nobody in Franklin County who is supporting Hometown Cable. So all you folks who enjoy our little corner and other shows that Hometown Cable puts on Channel 30 in Franklin County, this is viewer-supported television, and there's only so long that we can continue to bring you this programming without your support. We're not supported financially by the cable company, so we need your support, volunteer support, to keep this programming coming. That's going to wrap up the parade. Next in your view will be Mr. Gordy Little, who is back from being the Grand Marshal in his second annual Heritage Day parade here in beautiful downtown Moira.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the parade as much as I did, sitting on the back of that convertible, hoping that nobody took off fast or stopped fast. I got to see parts of Moira that I hadn't seen in 46 years. Went down past the cemetery and down the back roads and made the turn. Came all the way back here and the parade was still going on. I love the horses and the oxen and the marching people and the historical stuff, and it was a lot of fun. Stood behind Calvin, and I hadn't been there 10 seconds when a lady walked up to me and said, "Do you recognize this guy?" And this guy happened to be my father, the Reverend Russell Little. How did you get that picture? First of all, who are you?
I was at the time Carol Winters. I'm Carol Chapman now, and I took the picture of him. I would say probably, I must have been about 6 or 7 years old. It must have been about 40. Well, it was a few years ago.
I'm not even sure exactly when my dad left this area, because I left when I graduated in 1955 and actually never came back here. My dad was here for a few years before he moved after that, so it was probably in the 1950s sometime.
Early 50s, I would say.
Yeah, I think we came here in 51 or 52. Now, why did you take that picture?
Oh, because I loved him.
As
really
we all did.
Yeah.
He was a neat guy. He was a magician. And somebody said, I remember him. He pulled things out of the hat.
Yes.
And he was also a magician. But was this in your home or?
My mother and father's. He has a spoon sitting on this saucer that has a fly stuck to it.
Oh, it's the old fly on the spoon trick, huh?
Mm-hmm.
He used to pull neat things. Of course, my father was a minister as well as a magician, and I always remember going into restaurants and he'd walk over to somebody who was smoking a cigarette saying, you know, you're not supposed to smoke. Let me show you what to do with that. And he'd, of course, make it disappear.
Yeah.
And people would say, whoa.
Yeah, he did. He was a wonderful man.
You said when you were young you weren't well.
No. We had been very sick at the time that he was here. And
obviously you recovered, and
yes.
You still live in Moira?
Brushton. I live on the Gale Road in Brushton. And we lived in Bangor on the Bacon Road at the time.
Oh my goodness. My brother, Jim, was a Methodist minister in North Bangor years later, and he's way down in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
so
really? I was going to ask you
it's
where
so
he
much
was.
fun to come back here after 46
It was
years.
nice having
and
you.
be involved in the Heritage Day Parade and just to meet the people. And now you've made my whole life complete.
Well,
thank you so much. You're going to try to
welcome.
scan that.
Yes, I will. I will.
And send it to me as an
I have a friend
attachment
that
to the
will help me,
email.
and
You'll do it. And that way we'll both have it.
Okay,
Thank you so
I
much.
sure
It's
will.
great
It
to
was
meet
nice
you.
visiting with you
too. I have no idea what I was doing when I opened that email, and I got an email from this young lady right here, Linda Denoyers.
Hi.
When was that? When did you send me that first email?
Must be at least 4 or 5 months ago, was it? I've lost track.
I lost track too. We've exchanged a few emails since that time, and you said, would you consider coming down for our Heritage Day parade? And I said, what did I say?
Yes.
Of course I will. And Janet, what's your last name?
Dana.
Janet Dana. I don't know if did I know you when I lived here?
No, I lived here for the first 3 years of my life, then moved to Vermont and came back after college and taught in Brushton, Moira.
Did you really?
Yeah. But my mother's relatives and father's relatives are all from around here. The Pages.
Oh, yes.
And the Tryons, and so it's like coming back to my roots, really.
It is for me too, although I didn't move here until I was actually in high school, because we lived in Messina before we came here. But I have renewed some great friendships today since I've been back, and it's been so much fun. People shaking my hand and saying, you remember me? And I would say, oh boy. And then I met Rita Hutchins now. Her name was Rita Curran back then, but first I saw her brother Pat, who's in the fire department up there, and I did recognize him. It's funny, some faces change and some don't change. But Rita is now the town supervisor, I understand. Now, I want to know from you two, since you're so much responsible for putting this Heritage Day together, how did it all start to get ready for last year? I know you only had about 6 weeks to get ready for last year. Whose idea was it in the first place?
I retired, and so I guess I needed a hobby. And so one day when we were walking around town, because we thought, well, we certainly did need the exercise, we looked at the town hall, which was vacant and kind of dilapidated, and we thought, what a shame for a lovely historical building to just look like it was. So we just thought if we could get a little support, we would do something about it. And as you can see, everybody's really supportive of the whole idea. People have really pulled together. It's kind of a team effort. It's not just Linda and me doing this. It's, everybody has an assignment.
Well, it turned out very well. Last year I wasn't here, but you told me it was quite good considering you only had 6 weeks to prepare for it.
We had a pretty good turnout, but the weather wasn't cooperative either. So this year, the good Lord brought us lots of sunshine this year.
So now you have an historical association right here?
Right, and we've just applied for the incorporated status, so then we can get into the grant writing. But we've managed to rewire the building, and people have been painting it this week, a local family, and they've done just a remarkable job getting it ready for today. And we have the insulation purchased, and that's inside the building waiting to be done this summer. We've really done quite a lot. We've published 2 newsletters. People can sign up by sending their $5 membership dues, and this does include 2 newsletters for a year.
Now, who would they send it to? To you?
They could send it to Linda or to me, and my address is 200 State Route 11 in Moira.
And your address is?
Post Office Box 147, Moira.
I think it's absolutely terrific when people all of a sudden decide to retrieve the history of their towns. Some of them have waited 100 years to do it, and now they're finally doing it. And Calvin and I, with our little corner program on Hometown Cable, have gone around to so many of these communities, both here in the United States and up in Canada. And it's always a joy to see the little kids discovering what their grandfathers and great-grandfathers did for a living, and grandmothers.
Well, I think it keeps people together, too. You don't know your neighbors anymore. And that's what I like to know.
That's sometimes true. People in communities, you'll ask them who lives next door, and they don't have an idea. But back when we were kids, everybody relied on each other. We go to each other's home for dances on Friday night, or whatever there was to do, we do it together as communities. I was recalling when we were starting out here, going to ice cream socials on this lawn in the 1950s. It just flashed through my head, because I obviously love ice cream and fresh strawberries. So how big of a job was it to get this going for this year?
We started the day after last year's.
I think it was simpler last year when we only had the 6 weeks. Then if everything fell apart, we had that to 6 weeks. Well, what did you expect? But this year, since we've had the whole year, we've really had to work at it and get our act together probably a bit more.
I like the newsletter.
Oh, good.
I liked your article.
Well, never mind that nonsense, but I love the stories that you people wrote, and the old stories about the old days. That's wonderful, because you get to share those stories with everybody else.
Yes, and I think too, when we get our historical building done, the kids from school will enjoy going into it, because we hope to have a mini general store and a hardware store and a doctor's office, and we haven't exactly finalized the plans. We do have to have a bank or post office, because we can't get the old safe out of the building.
Oh, you can't really?
No.
That's pretty good.
There's no dealing with that, so we have to work something around it. But people all have various talents around here, and they're perfectly willing to share them with us. I guess that's what I've discovered the most from this little project. Apparently everybody wants this, they just needed somebody to do it.
They need a product. They need a gadfly sometime to get them going. Well, you guys have done just a magnificent job. I'm very honored to have come down here today. It's just one of the biggest kicks of my lifetime. And I was standing over there behind Calvin, and as he was taping the last of the parade, and a lady walked up to me with a photograph she had taken of my father when he was here in the 1950s.
Wow.
And it was just such a neat thing for me to see. She took it when she was 6 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that cool?
People were excited about your coming here today, and we are really appreciative of the fact that you did spend some time with us.
It's just a lot of fun, and now I regret that I haven't come back here to renew those friendships. Your life gets busy, you move on and you move to different places, and sometimes you forget to go home, you know?
We'll be here next year, the
I
last
bet
Saturday
you
in
will
July.
And it should be an awful lot of fun. We're going to go around and interview some of the people you have gathered here with your permission. We want to talk to Kermit. What's his last name? I forgot.
Kermit Well.
Saxon.
Saxon, yeah,
Yeah,
isn't that
Saxon.
awful? There is a
Kermit.
Wells, but not him.
Well, I'm going to sneak over and talk to him, and we'll talk to you ladies before we go.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. All right, I've been wanting to talk to the oxen man for a long time. Kermit Saxon, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Well, it was so great to see you here. You've been fooling around with oxen, training them for how long?
40 years.
Come on.
40 years.
How did that start?
Well, my grandfather, I heard him tell about oxen, and my great-grandfather. And that's all they had. They said in 1840, 70% of the land in the Northeast was farmed with oxen, and 30% with horses.
I didn't know that.
And then after 1870, oxen didn't run fast enough, walk fast enough to make a ground-driven machine run. So it changed around, and it was 70% with horses and 30% with oxen.
Isn't that incredible? So what, you remember your first pair?
Yeah, Pat and Riley.
Even remembers their names?
Yeah, and the ones before these was Caleb and Noble, and the ones before them was Abraham and Isaac.
Well, of course, Abraham and Isaac, they'd have to be in there somewhere.
Slowly up the country road goes the ox before the goad. Meek and placid, mild eyes strong. Under yoke he plods along. Here's a lesson not to shirk, but be patient with your work.
I love it.
And I got one more.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. If I were a cobbler, I'd make it my pride, the best of all cobblers to be. If I were a tinker, no tinker beside should mend an old kittle like me. But whether a tinker or whether a lord, whatever my station may be, determined to play second fiddle to none, I'd climb to the top of the tree.
I love it. Never mind that second fiddle stuff, right, Kermit? Where do you live?
Up on the Saxton Road, off the Gale Road.
Well, you'd have to live on the Saxton
Oh,
Road.
we've been there since 1836, the family.
Oh, wow. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
So you lived up there when I was here in
Oh,
the
yes.
50s?
I remember coming here, your father preached once.
Yeah.
We go to Wesleyan Church in Malone.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So what are the names of these oxen?
This is Samson, that was Daniel.
I saw you getting ready to join the parade, and then when you came past the four corners here, I didn't know if you were going to slow down till you got to Potsdam.
They almost got away from me, Mr. Little. I should have put a rope halter on one of them. And I don't like to parade downhill.
Downhill, yeah.
I'd rather go uphill. They ain't so fast, you know.
So they want to keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Do you take stories?
Oh, sure.
Did you hear about, I told the priest in Preston this story. I'm full of stories and humorous sayings and poems.
Well, we're ready for stories.
All right. There was a priest at the horse races, and he was laying his hands on a horse. And there was two Protestants there. And they said, see that priest from our hometown, he's laying his hand on a horse. That's the horse going to win. We'll put all of our money on that horse. So they put all their money on that horse. The priest knew the two Protestants, and they knew the priest. Well, when the race was over, that horse came in last. And they said, they walked off the grounds, and they saw the priest, and they said, we think we ought to have our money back. He said, how is that? Well, he said, when we came in on these grounds, we saw you laying your hands on a horse, blessing a horse, and we thought that would be the horse that would win, but it came in last. We've lost all of our money. The priest looked at him with a kind of a sarcastic look, and he said, that's the trouble, you Protestants. You don't know the difference between a blessing and the last right.
That's a good one.
And one more.
One more, okay.
One more. There was a lady had a parrot. All the parrot would do was get up on a swing and swing back and forth and flop the swing and say, my name's Sally, I'm a swinger. My name's Sally, I'm a swinger. One day the priest came calling, he just got in the house, and that parrot was going, my name's Sally, I'm a swinger. My name's Sally, I'm a swinger. The priest said, that's strange. He said, I got two parrots back home at the rectory. Oh, he said, they're awful good Catholics. He said, they say the beads, hour after hour, day in and day out. He said, I believe if you let me take your parrot home and put it in the cage with my parrots, it would break it, saying that. Well, she said, Father, that sounds like a good idea. So he took the parrot home, put it in the cage, just got the little cage door shut, and that parrot got up on the swing and began to swing back and forth and flap its wings and say, my name's Sally, I'm a swinger. My name's Sally, I'm a swinger. One of the priest parrots, he cocked his head to one side, he looked at his cage partner, and he said, throw away your beads, this is what we've been praying for.
I love it. Tell me, how old is the yoke on these oxen?
That probably is maybe 75 years old.
Really?
Yeah, it's old. All my yokes are old.
Wow. Yeah, just like your jokes, he says, Calvin says.
He probably heard all of them.
Kermit, thanks a lot for being here. You're
thanks
a great
for coming
guy.
in and interviewing me.
Good to see you. See you later.
Yep.
When Gordy first told me that he'd be coming back here for this parade, I said, well, why not make a day out of it, Gordy? I'll bring the camera along, we'll do an hour little corner, and we get Gordy to meet some of his former schoolmates here, right on tape here. We're not going to... This guy's attire speaks for itself. Typical Gordy little friend, I think, right here. In his everyday garb.
You know, it's really nice to see the historical associations and societies from this area represented at the Moira Heritage Day Parade. And the first one we stopped at here is Bombay. What's your name, Justin Leduc?
Justin Leduc.
Glad to have you here today. Are you in this association, or did somebody just tell you, come on, stand by and sell our stuff?
No, I'm in it.
Are you really?
Yes.
Are you interested in history?
Yes, I am. I love history.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I don't know too much about the town of Bombay. I know I haven't been there in maybe 40 years, but it's been a nice community for a long time, hasn't it?
It has been.
Yeah. I don't know when Bombay was first founded, but I'm sure if any of our viewers are interested, they can take advantage of some of the books that are here. I see the census for the 1800s for Bombay. I see somebody does a kind of a newsletter. Is that what that is? The
Yes.
Bombay Historical Notes?
Yes, they do that annually. And it's $3, and it's filled with information about the town and what's going on with the town throughout the years.
It's nice to do interviews with some of the older people who've been around for a long time to get their kind of history. That's fun, isn't it?
That
to get
is
stories
fun.
from a long time
That
ago.
is fun.
It's when I stop to think about it, I'm one of the older people that comes back to this Heritage Day because I graduated from high school here in 1955. Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at Salmon River, but right now I'm homeschooled.
Oh, are you really?
I'm homeschooled.
Oh. Do you live on a farm in Bombay? Or?
No, I don't live on a farm. I live right on 95.
Ah. Is this a pretty big group here, this historical association, or?
I think it's made up of 15 members.
You meet on once a month, or?
Once a month.
Yep.
And it's every Thursday, and we always have something going on, whether it's learning about the history of the town or it's an activity. We've always got something going on.
You got any favorite historical stories that you've learned? Anything about Bombay in its past that you found interesting that you might want to share with us today? I don't know if there was industry in Bombay years ago. I don't know if there was a milk plant there. I'm trying to remember.
There was a milk factory right where Durbin's machine shop is now in Bombay.
Yep. I remember that. Well, the town's been incorporated for a while. I don't know if it must go back to somewhere in
the 1800s.
Yeah, I can see some 1850s, 1840s, 1850s here.
I think it started around probably 1820.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks so much for talking with us for a minute.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
See you later, Justin.
Okay.
Well, here's another great historical group from the town of Stockholm. Joyce Fuller, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
This is kind of fun here today, isn't it?
Though? lovely day. Beautiful weather.
Reminiscent of the old days. I went to high school here and graduated in 1955, and so they invited me back to be in the parade today, and I'm renewing all the old acquaintances. So it's
there you go.
It's an awful lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Have
like
you
the
dug
old.
up your roots yet?
I don't want to dig up some of my roots. It's great to hear the music in the background and see the kids and grandparents having a good time.
Right. I found a horse thief in mine.
Did you really?
Yes.
I'm sure
they
were.
hung him in 1843.
Did they? That fixed him, right? That was the end of that line.
Steal any more horses?
I'm sure there were a few outlaws in mine. Calvin was telling me he saw somebody with one of those genealogical wheels, and there were only like about 5 spaces vacant going back like 16 generations. I don't know how anybody has that kind of persistence. It's hard to do, isn't it?
We've been at it for 20 years, and as you can see, our wheels aren't filled in yet.
I
lost a lot of cogs.
I don't think my wheels are ever going to be filled in. Joyce, how did you ever get involved in history?
Well, my dad said that his family was a bunch of camel thieves.
Oh, camel thieves!
So I just went to prove he was wrong.
You just got interested in checking out the family.
Yeah.
And now probably other people's families.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And now I'm writing cemetery books.
Are you really?
Yep. Whoops, that's my husband's book.
How many have you done?
I've done 2 so far. This is...
Have you ever met Clyde Rabideau Sr. in
Yep.
Clinton County? He just finished 3 books cataloging every Clinton County cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And it was done before in the 40s and 50s and 60s by another family, but he updated it and spent at least 2 or 3 years on it. So it's a big project, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So what's this one?
Well, this is Hopkins Fort Jackson Cemetery, which is close by. And, of course, it's all indexed. And there's pictures of the
colored pictures.
Cemetery lots.
This is for first-class operation. How do you get them printed when you get done?
On my computer.
Do you really?
I do it all off my computer, and then I send it down to Syracuse and have it bound.
Well, you know that he does that quite often too. Does an awful lot of the work he does on the computer, but people have no idea how much work is involved.
There's 2 years in this book, and there's 3 years in Brazier Falls Cemetery. We did a friend of mine and I did St. Patrick's in Brazier Falls, and what we did with these is we went into the old records. We went into the old newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
All the newspapers from 1861 when they started up to 1901. All the obituaries are in here. Talk about a glutton for punishment.
Well, you have to have a passion for history to get involved.
And the wars they were in. And in the back, we have where they, like on the stone, when you find it's just the year they died.
Oh, yes.
We went to Albany and we picked out every single one that died in New York State for that year.
But you know, you're laying the groundwork to create an interest in history for young people who will come long after you and I are gone, and that's the whole idea, right? You like these brown covers, right, Joyce?
Well, no, we do this to distinguish what part of, now like Brazier's done in blue and
I should have known you'd have the whole thing color-coded.
It's easier. Now, a friend of mine did this book, and she went through and did all the cemetery stones too.
Look at that with the
which
photograph.
Is fantastic.
Oh,
yes.
Isn't that neat?
This was done by Marcia Chapman. She lives over in Stockholm. And she made trips to Albany with me and looked up dates and she did a beautiful.
Do you have a large group? How big a group do you have?
Oh, there's got to be at least 100 or better.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And usually every summer they have an open house. But this year they just couldn't make up their mind when. I think it's because Pat's gone, our main person that just did everything, and a lot of people didn't give her the credit that she really deserved.
Oh, that's always the way it is until after a person is gone.
Right.
So it's up to you to take the torch and run with it.
There you go.
So you've been doing it for a long time, and you obviously love it.
I love it.
Isn't it a lot of fun just to see what you can dig up?
Yes, I get calls from all over.
Do you really?
Yeah. I'm working on family right now, from Stockholm, the Nichols family, for a fella out in Iowa. And he's been ecstatic over the stuff I've found.
Oh, that's so
It's not very profitable, but it's fun.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers in Clinton and Essex counties don't even know where Stockholm is, so give us a little brief overview about where it's located and a little bit of the history.
Okay, the town of Stockholm was broken off from Messina. And it's quite a good-sized township because you have little villages like Winthrop and Brookdale, and there's 11. And there's 11 cemeteries in the town of Stockholm.
Right here.
And if I'd known you were going to do this, I'd have pulled them out.
Oh, that's not necessary. But that was a long time ago. When did Stockholm get its name?
Let's see, John Winthrop actually was the one that came into Stockholm and settled there. And then it just became I wish I had that book here too.
Well,
boy, you caught me at a bad day.
Listen, that's perfectly all right. And you got some pretty old books with you here too, haven't you?
Yeah. The first burial in the town of Stockholm was in 1769.
Well, there you go. You're getting back to the very beginning then.
Yeah.
A lot of these little towns started in the mid 1700s and later 1700s.
Well, that wasn't broke off from Messina until 1810 or 11. Yep.
So your family's been there for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And your husband's family.
My dad used to say down in Brookdale, the place of my birth, the worst place on the face of the earth.
That's pretty clever. Well, it's great to have you here today, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Joyce.
It's a case, if I'd known you were coming, I'd have baked a cake.
Baked the cake, and I'd have brought my fork. I'd have brought the fork.
For you.
Joyce, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Much.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
As I said before, it's always great when these little communities get together and decide that they want to delve into the history of the place where they were born and brought up, or the place where they call home. And Westville Historical Society is a fairly new one, right?
Right, but we're not called society. We're the WHO, Westville Historical Organization.
Oh, that's a great. I was reading it upside down off the...
Right here?
Oh, see? There you go. Never mind society. Cancel that.
That's what Moira put down.
Oh, okay. Who are you?
I'm Joy Wilson.
Joy, I'm pleased to meet you. I'm Gordy Little, and this is Calvin Castine for Hometown Cable. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Well, we just started up in October of last year, and we're going to be doing a charter membership drive for the whole year of 2001. And right now we're interested in getting a place, and hopefully it'll be ours very shortly. The Franklin County legislators have already okayed the building for us, and now we're in the process of going through the town board and making sure it's going to be ours, and we're waiting to hear from Albany to see if we're getting our charter from them.
Great.
We want to become incorporated, and right now we are doing genealogies, and we have several different genealogies that we've already done, and they include the Armstrongs, the Averys, the Brooks, the Cushmans, the McGibbons, the Robinsons, the Rockhills, Starkses, Taylors, and the Wilsons. And we've traced several of them back to the Mayflower.
Have you really?
Yes.
That's not too shabby,
No, I think we've got about 5 families. Some of them are already with the Mayflower, I think it's a charter or whatever they call it, organization. And we have the Cushmans right now that are trying to validate that they are from the Mayflower.
When did you get this history bug yourself?
Well, I've always been doing the family photos and trying to get a little bit of the genealogy for our family, and it just expanded.
So are you the president of this organization?
No, I'm just one of the founders committee. Susan Tobias, she was a McGibbon, and she is our acting president. We're not having our first elections until November. So we're on ground level right now.
That's great. And if somebody's watching this who'd like to get involved, would they contact you, or how would they get a hold of you?
We have several different people that they can contact. They can contact Susan McGibbon Tobias. Her telephone number is 562-3948. Myron Brady, his number is 358-2975. Jean Goddard, she's our town historian for Westville. You can contact her at 358-2374. Rosanna Clark, 483-5676. Judy Stark, 358-2831. And myself, 483-0629.
Well, I see you're penciled in at the end there, Joy.
Yes, I know. They made a mistake and didn't get me in it.
We give you full credit today. Thanks so much for being here and talking with us.
Thank you.
Of course, the Moira Heritage Day program would not be complete unless we looked at exhibits from the Town of Moira Historical Association, working so hard in this area to preserve the town's history. Some of the photographs here are just as charming as they can be. We see an old lantern, an old milk bottle, Universal Store bottle. That's a half pint. Oh yes, I remember those bottles very well. They've got some very nice items for sale here today. And I'm going to kneel right down next to Rita, who I saw her brother Pat from the fire department of Wade as I went by in the parade. And then Rita walked over and said, "You don't remember me." And it took me 1 second, but now I do. Rita Curran, and your present name is?
Hutchins.
Hutchins.
Yeah.
And you're the town supervisor.
I'm the town supervisor. I have been for the past 8 years. This will be my last year. I was clerk for 12, which I found to be extremely enjoyable.
Wow.
And so 20 years is enough. I'm gone at the end of 20.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your life since I last saw you in 1955.
Wow. Well, I'm married. I have 5 children. They're, of course, all grown all throughout the United States. And I like to work, so I work full-time for the United States Census Bureau. I survey in Franklin and Jefferson counties every month. All sorts of surveys. I do health for the Center for Disease Control. I do a labor one. I also work for the University of Chicago, and I'm currently working for the Federal Reserve Board. So
No grass or moss growing down there.
No. So I'm busy.
That's great. You have an excitement and a passion for life today and for history too, obviously, right?
Well, I'm really only a volunteer. The town gave the Historical Society that just formed about almost 2 years ago, we gave them the use of the old Moira Town Hall, which is to my left.
Yes.
And they're in the process of renovating that and just beginning to start their collection of memorabilia that they'll store there.
It's so important that these things happen, don't you think so?
Well, I guess. I was when I was town clerk, people amazed me when they came to do genealogy research because I had never been involved.
Oh, you hadn't?
No. So I had the books. I had the births, the deaths, the marriages from all that are recorded from 1886 on. So when people would come to research their ancestors, it utterly amazed me because I didn't have the interest that most people do.
Well, now interest is getting more universal.
Oh, yeah.
Even the little kids are interested in history.
Yeah.
I wonder where all these photographs came from.
I have no idea. People
Boy,
are,
aren't they
as I
neat?
said, people are just beginning to donate them because they will compile them, put a name to whatever they can and hopefully get a lot of it on computer.
Oh, I was looking at the back of the pictures. This
Some of
lady
them
was looking, and
have,
some of them even
some
have
do.
the names.
Yeah, some do.
We wish more of our senior citizens would write the names and dates on the back of their pictures. That would make life a lot easier for us.
Oh, I have pictures of my own family that I didn't write on, and I don't know who they are.
You better start doing it. This is wonderful. I was so happy when Linda sent me a little note and said, "Would you be in our parade?" And I said, "I'd love to."
And with the membership, and I guess you have an article, they get the newsletter a couple of times a year. Did you get a newsletter?
Yes, I did, and it's kind of neat.
Yeah, so
It's so much fun to come back and replow the old ground and meet the old people that have been around for a long time. It's just been a big, tremendous big kick for me. And to meet you again, Rita.
Well, I guess, yeah.
Thank you so much for talking
thank
with
you.
us. Have a great day.
I will.
Gentlemen, you are at the 2001 second annual Moira Heritage.
I'm standing right in front of the old Moira Town Hall, which will soon be the home of the Moira Historical Association. And I have to give credit to all the people who helped to make this Heritage Day a huge success. Not the least of whom is the weatherman, a beautiful sunshiny day on the 28th day of July, 2001. We were given a program as we moved into the area shortly after 10 o'clock this morning before the parade. Most of the activities have centered around this little park, which is next to the Methodist Church in town. And we talked with Kermit Saxton and his oxen. There's a petting zoo here from the FFA with John St. Mary. Children's games with Beth Ravadu. There was face painting, a pie sale in the church. We saw them carrying the pies out earlier. There was cotton candy and a cookie sale from Tops. Historical Association had a Chinese auction and a cake walk. There was hat making at the Grace Community Church, Silly Sally stories from the First Christian Church, old tools with Mr. Tucker, twig furniture with Jay Wilson, great old engines with B. Winters, the Moira Historical Association, Westville Historical Organization, the Who, the Stockholm Historical Society, Bombay Historical Society, and many more, including the Civil War exhibit with Bruce Jackson and Dallas Robinson, the Revolutionary War exhibit with Maine Yeomans, inside the town hall, which we have yet to see, railroad items with W. Quinn and Sabin, old tools with H. Hughes, and carpentries, D. McCain with a blanket chest, the laundry, washing clothes with Susan Flint, sewing with Shirley Barse, the corn stand, the Moira Historical Association. We saw them cooking corn on the cob, in the shucks, right here in front of us. Ice cream making with the Straw family, butter making, a soap making with Marcy Bright, quilting with Brass Thimble, spinning with L. Hastings, weaving with P. LeBeau, candle making from the House of History, children's games and soccer sign-up, a spelling bee. Perhaps you saw Joe Van Els and the others in the parade today. On the stage, Master of Ceremonies, Danny Cleaves, and all the entertainment. You have a magician and his partner who are performing now. There's a horseshoe tournament, tractors, floats, the lunch stand, special demonstrations all day long. The Christian church singers were on the stage a while ago. Then the Brushton Moira Falls Community Band. It's Professor Marvel's Old Time Medicine Show now. Later, between 2 and 5, the North Country Fiddlers. From 5 to 6, Mr. Cleaves himself will be here. And that's the activities at the Historical Heritage Day in Moira. We're inside the town hall, and this is going to be the home of the Moira Historical Association. Who are you?
My name is Bill Quinn. I live here in Moira. And
what have you got with you here today?
Okay, this is part of my collection of railroad artifacts. I collect mainly paper and some other stuff, but basically it's all railroads, all of the railroads here in northern New York.
Of course, every kid has an interest in a railroad. I go back to all the steam trains that used to go through here when I lived here many, many years ago. When did your interest start? As a small child?
Well, yeah, as a child. As a kid, I grew up, I was born in Utica, New York, and I can remember as a child, my father used to take me down to the Union Station down in Utica and watch the trains come in. And then we moved up here a number of years later. And I started getting interested in this about 10 years ago. Gotten into the history of the railroads that were here in northern New York. And the more, as you can see, there were all different kinds, and I really have gotten into. It's a fascinating field. It's a way of life that's totally gone. Like Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. They're gone. And it was a whole, you stop and think. 100 years ago, you went by horse, or you went by foot, or you went by train. And as I got into this, I just found it absolutely fascinating. that there was all these railroad companies that were in, I'm talking about northern New York, is really would be north of Syracuse. You drew a line from Albany to Syracuse north of that. And I think at one time, I think I counted like there were 13 or 14 different railroad companies that were actually functioning, but they were all gobbled up. Most of them ended up being owned by the New York Central.
So much of the history of the North Country is tied into the development of the railroad.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. They came in up in this area. The original line, everybody calls it the Rutland, but the original line was built in the late 1840s. Was called the Northern New York Railroad, and it just so they could get the goods from the Great Lakes to Boston. And so they built through here, and they couldn't get through Central New York because the New York Central controlled it. But as the years went by, the resources, the Adirondacks for tourism, the lumber over towards Plattsburgh, Mineville, the minerals. Then here, get back to this area, was what they called the white gold, the milk. And towards other areas, down towards Watertown, down that way, there was the pulp mills. This line right here, this one is just closing. This is the line that went from Carthage to Newcomb Falls.
Oh my goodness.
This is the original company.
Wow.
And this is the one that was just in the Watertown paper there, that evidently they're finally shutting it down. But this is one of the things. And what happened to these lines is they eventually were gobbled up. This one, Utica Black River, this started in Utica, New York, went up through into Watertown. It got gobbled up by this one, the Rome, Watertown, Ogdensburg line, who in turn were gobbled up by the New York Central and the Hudson River. The only line that's really still in existence here is this one, the Canadian National.
Oh, sure.
Which comes over in Fort Covington and then runs over into Messina Springs. But originally, that was the Grand Trunk Railroad. And then the Canadian government bought out the Grand Trunk and formed the Canadian National. And this is Rutland. But this one here was the line that they're restoring right now, the one that starts down around Old Forge. Well, this was the original line that was built from Remsen to Malone. This is the one that they're calling, what do they call it now, the Adirondack Railroad, I believe. This is the one they have just started rebuilding. But I find it absolutely fascinating history.
And you know, it's interesting that we're recording this on July 28th, 2001. There was a big news story this morning saying that Amtrak is laying off thousands and thousands of people nationwide. And the more things go around, the more they come back to bite you, you know where.
Yeah.
I don't know what the future of railroading is going to be. I haven't taken a long train ride since I graduated from high school here in 1955. And our senior trip was by train to New York City. Can you imagine?
I did our class. I graduated in '65. We went to New York.
So I don't know what's happening.
Well, the problem, trying to not put it in a capsule, what I feel is what's happened in this country with the railroads. Well, first, it's very tough because the thing that motivated them, it was the money. Passenger service was never really a moneymaker. The money was in freight, has been from way back to now. The only areas to where passenger service has survived are in your large metropolitan areas. Boston, New York, D.C., Los Angeles, San Francisco. In fact, a lot of people wouldn't consider it, but one of the biggest passenger carrying trains, and if it was stretched out in a line, it's the New York New York City Transit System. If that was stretched out, it would go from New York City to Detroit.
Would it really?
Yes.
Wow, that's hard to believe. That's a good way to put it, though.
But outside of that, outside of your large metropolitan areas, it's very difficult for rail services sustain business now, we in America, railroads were always run by private concerns. The Europeans and then the Canadians later on, the government stepped in. But that wasn't really for passengers. There was an economic motivation and a military motivation involved. And that's the whole, you can digress into a whole different situation on that.
So what kinds of things have you collected besides these?
Well,
other stuff?
Well, basically, okay, these are the stock certificates.
And we got, what do we got over here?
These here are postcards in the middle.
Yeah.
Over there.
Get right up.
Over here are your different timetables, Rutland, New York Central, Delaware and Hudson. The Vermont Central ran the Rutland Railroad from 1870 to 1896. All right, Grand Trunk. These are railroad passes, Grand Trunk. These are part of my Rutland, that's a Rutland ticket. There's a very interesting ticket of Moira. It's Moira to Brushton. This one was a pass. These are more tickets. These are more tickets. This here, right here, this book here was a dispatcher's book.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is what they would, when the train pulled in, a copy of it was given to the engineer, and then they kept a copy. This is the Ogdensburg Lake Champlain over in Morris Fork. It's 1885, I believe it is. This is a rule book. What is interesting about this is it has the Rutland Railroad and the Ogdensburg Lake Champlain, and there's a section on Moira. This here's a small travel book of the Vermont Central 1885, and you can see they don't really have photographs. They have like little paintings they used. These here, this gentleman is looking at, these are travel books. Home, Watertown, Ogdensburg, Rutland, Delaware and Hudson, New York Central, Canadian Pacific, and Grand Trunk. Now you're wondering, why do I have Canadian Pacific? Well, the Canadian Pacific Railroad, even though it wasn't over here, influenced how the other railroads. The worst nightmare that the Vanderbilts could dream of is pick up the morning New York papers and find out the Canadian Pacific had a terminal in New York City, because the two biggest competitors to the New York Central during its height was the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Canadian Pacific. And this here is three train wrecks. This was one over about Port Henry, where some people were killed.
Oh, Port Henry, because we were down in the Port Henry area doing a few stories on the mining down there.
Well, you had a rail line over there, and I can't remember the exact name of it, to be perfectly honest with you. I can't remember. This here is an accident reported about a kid that got hit, was on a wagon and got hit by a train down by DeKalb, and this is a train wreck down around Big Moose. Nobody was killed in this one. But this is only a small sample. I got books on the histories of railroads, and I got more timetables and different stuff. And over there is a telegraph. This here was what you would probably find in a small station. The telegraph key, the relay, the sounder, of course the classic railroad lanterns. The one with the red globe is the New York Central. The other one's Rutland. The telephone, the brass phone, is what the dispatcher had. And it's different from the normal phones because you notice how that arm curls up. Well, they had Western Electric develop them just for the railroad companies. And ironically, those things are still being used up into the 50s.
Come on.
No, I'm dead serious. Most people, you don't see it that way. Most people see them with the, like a fish thing, they pulled out. What they did, they just took the base off and they bolted it on. And they could pull it out, and they pushed it out of the way.
Yeah.
The other thing is a telephone from the 1920s, which would have been somebody calling the station. See, in a railroad station, you would have had two lines. One would have been the brass one, which was owned and operated by the railroad company because they had to dispatch people, like, hey, Charlie, you got the 20th Century Limited coming in 10 minutes. There's a train off the track. You can't say, hey, Maybell, connect me. So they had their own separate line, and then this other one would be, you're calling up, you want to know what, I want to ship whatever to Chicago. How much is it going to cost me? And ironically, that phone one I found that had batteries from the 1950s.
Is it?
Yeah, you wouldn't think it, but just to digress into telephones, I found it was not unusual up until the 1950s. A lot of these phones were still being used in private homes.
Well, of course, we had crank phone in our home until maybe about 1951, so over in Messina.
Right.
We had a regular telephone here, I'm sure, when we moved to Moira in the 1950s. Have you ever read any of the books by, what's Shaughnessy's first name?
Oh, Jim Shaughnessy?
Jim
I
Shaughnessy?
have both of his books.
We went to interview him, spent about 6 hours interviewing him at, where was that, in Vermont, in Stowe, Vermont. It was one of our most delicious occasions. We didn't eat or drink or do anything. We just sat at a table and let the man talk until we all ran out of steam. What a guy.
There's, trying to think the guy up in...
Michael Kudish?
Mike, have you talked to him?
Not yet. I talked to him. We haven't talked to him.
And then there's a guy over in Vermont. His name is Jim Murphy. He's a big-time collector. He worked for the Central Vermont. He's retired. And I don't know exactly where he lives. Boy, I wish I could remember. I can't remember.
We'll catch up with all these people at one time or another, because this is really a kick for us to go around and find out what people are interested in. We've also done a couple of programs with some guys and gals who are interested in model railroading.
Well, that's a totally different field. The person that I just was talking to, he's a big-time model railroad. The man that just, when you guys walked in, I'm not into the model railroad. First of all, I don't have the room. A lot of this stuff goes right back into binders.
Oh, really?
Storage. I just don't have the room.
But you've been doing this for a long time.
About 10 years.
Have you really?
Seriously, about 10 years.
What would be your most prized possession if you could get your hands on something? Anything special you're looking for?
Oh, always loads. I would love to find some material on the New York and Ottawa railroad line. Very rare to find. I have a postcard, but see, that line was originally that had the same name as it was Northern New York, then Northern Adirondack. It's very hard to find anything on the New York and Ottawa Railroad. And then almost like looking for the Golden Fleece, there was a line called the St. Lawrence and Saratoga Railroad, which was changed to the Moira Bombay Railroad. And it was a line that ran from Bombay to here, and it was only in existence for about 8-9 years. Trying to find documents of that. Very, very rare.
The quest never ends.
Oh, no, you never, you never know. I mean, this stuff here, I've found this. I've been garage sales, auctions, flea markets, the internet. It's amazing. You don't know where this stuff turns up.
But it's fun, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Like you say, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Right.
Like Christmas, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to say which one of these things is my prize, it's really hard to pin it down. I couldn't. Some of the stuff could be somewhat common. Some of it I know is extremely rare. But to really pin it down,
have you got a local club, or is this kind of a one-man band here for you, Bill?
That's a one-man band. There's me and a friend of mine. He isn't here today. In fact, he's at a big auction today. He is a very big collector of lanterns. See, you can break this down.
Oh, sure. Subcategories, yeah.
You can just deal with lanterns. He deals with lanterns, locks, and keys. And I mean, he's got some real rare, prestigious lanterns. Other people just collect timetables and stuff. This is the other thing, is as I got into this and got onto the internet, I had to deal with people that telegraph to find out the story, information on that. The telephone stuff. You deal with so many other different areas of people.
You meet a lot of new friends, huh?
Oh, yeah. Always have people coming up.
Well, Bill, we got to wrap it up here, but thanks so much for talking with us today.
No problem.
It's a lot of fun to come back to Moira. Well, you know, this may very well be the gaudy little highlight of 2001. I want to thank Linda and Janet for inviting me down here to a Moira Heritage Day, for being a part of the parade, and for allowing Calvin to come down with us and chronicle some of this wonderful history for our folks back home and for the people who watch this program here. I want to thank all the cable systems that allow us to put our little corner on. And thanks to all the other media who've been kind enough to let us broadcast and write the things we write and do and talk about over the years. Because we believe that the things we love should be shared. And the history of this hometown, which was my hometown for almost 5 years back in the 1950s, is a very much of a part of who I am. And you don't always give the people in the area that much credit until you come back home. So it was a good thing for me to come back home today and meet the Gales and meet the Denoyers and meet all the other folks that we haven't seen in such a long, long time. We've read about them in the papers and followed some of their careers, and now to come back and meet them once again and hear about their children and grandchildren and exchange old war stories is just a giant kick. This is going to be the history of the Moira Historical Association, right in this wonderful old town hall. I have no idea when it was built, but it's been a long time since I walked into a building that had light bulbs hanging from the ceilings. Reminds me of the old schoolhouse at Scamotion Creek in Plattsburgh before they tore it down. It's just been an awful lot of fun. We hope you've enjoyed seeing it. If you like what you see, if you find an interest in history and you don't have an association or a society or an organization in your hometown, start one. If you're interested in genealogy, contact your local town clerk or somebody who might be involved in history and get started. You'll learn a lot and you'll feel a lot better about who you are when you find out who your ancestors were. Thank you, everyone, for allowing us to be here in Moira today and become a part of Moira Heritage Day. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.
Boy, Janet makes phone calls.
As Yogi Berra once said, it ain't over till it's over. And if you thought we were finished, you were wrong. Calvin and I were just coming into the village of Brushton, heading back toward Ellenburg to exchange our goodbyes for the day after having so much fun in the Moira Heritage Day celebration, when we saw this idyllic setting. And believe me, folks, when I tell you this area looks far different today from the way it looked when I left here in 1955. As the State Education Department 1932 sign says, this was the site of the first starch factory in the town of Moira, built in 1851 by Colonel C.A. Stone and Captain William A. Tupper. And I can just remember this as being tremendously overgrown. The railroad went through. You can actually see the ramparts or the remnants of the railroad bridge as it approached Brushton and went right across the road. Back in the days when I lived here, the railroad tracks always went across the road in Brushton. But now this is, we understand from the gate, the Manson Insurance Company, and we see the M on the chimney above the building. And somebody has done a spectacular job here, and I'm sure after viewing this program, many of you will know precisely who did it. I would imagine it's the Manson family. Whoever is responsible for it, it's incredible. Beautiful property, well-kept grounds. See the little guy fishing down there by the river? Isn't he kind of neat? With a footbridge going across the river here, the rocks neatly placed along both sides, the terraced walls on both sides of the street, beautiful on the far side with the statues and the deer and the flowers. And if Calvin walks down with me a little bit this way, you can see that there are a couple of Canadian geese on. I just returned from vacation up at Coles Creek campsite on the St. Lawrence, where every dawn you're greeted by 100 or 200 Canadian geese who walk around along the banks of the St. Lawrence River. But these are not real, but they sure do look real from here. So we had to stop here for just a moment and let you look around to just show you another piece of what another part of the North Country looks like. If you're ever traveling down Route 11 from Malone to North Bangor to Brushton, just west of Brushton, right on the edge of the village, you'll see the site of the first starch factory in Maple. You want to take a little video or something here today. It's an absolutely gorgeous day on the 28th day of July. The jet contrails going overhead, making delicious patterns in the sky. A tremendous number of people. I will be digesting the comments made by these people for the rest of my life. Just before we left, as I was saying goodbye to Linda, 3 or 4 different people walked up to me and told me, Calvin doesn't want me to get run over, and told me that my father had baptized them as children. And that pleased me a great deal, because to a man and to a woman, they all said my dad was a great guy. And it's a pretty good tribute to a man who spent his life ministering to his flock, as he called them, in little country communities all over New York State. So it's been a great day for me, and I hope it's been as good a day for you on Hometown Cable. Now, can I say it again? I don't know where we're going to be. We may stop again before we get home for our little corner.